Praise be to Jesus Christ, and forward with Mary. Have a good and holy day to all of you, dear children, in the sacred hearts of Jesus and Mary, and in the most chaste heart of Saint Joseph. Welcome back to our morning feature, Saints and Coffee. Today is Wednesday, the 22nd of January. The Church celebrates the liturgical feast of two martyrs, Vincent Deacon of Saragossa. In Zaragoza, there are several places I visited that bear witness to the martyrdom of this ardent deacon, somewhat comparable to St. Lawrence of Rome. We're still in the era of the persecutions of the first 3 centuries. And then the other saint, I think, is Anastasius, who died in Persia. However, his body, some of his mortal remains, were brought to Rome, so he is venerated today, along with Saint Vincent. These partnerships that the liturgy establishes to speak of the witnesses of faith. I remind you that the martyrs are in the foreground. Whoever sheds blood for Jesus Christ, whoever dies for Jesus Christ, dear children, is in pole position in heaven. We talked about it with the catechist cycle on the Apocalypse, the 144,000, 22nd of January. We conclude the novena for Russia. It seems to me, if you agree, that this novena, for various reasons, has positioned itself within a development. And that's the topic we'll be discussing today. In the window in today's column, within a development, in my opinion, surprising. We'll talk about it in a moment. I'm referring in practice to the possibility of an axis, a new axis, a global one that could apparently be on the horizon with respect to the New World Order. They're all afraid to talk about this because the situation is delicate. But I'd like to talk about it because I think it's important. Otherwise, what's the point of this novena? The idea that we stop to pray. Prayer is the true revolution of the world. Until this is understood, the world is going to pot. The world follows a different path from the one desired by God. My dear children, the Marxist idea that revolution is external to us, I have spoken about this in recent weeks, is an idea that to this day most consciences consider advantageous. Instead, the true revolution is that of prayer. It is prayer that changes the events of the world. It is prayer that changes history. It is prayer that guides the events of community life, collective life, and personal life according to God's plan. Therefore, I believe that this novena, in my opinion, for Russia, is achieving, and it will also achieve soon, in my view, important developments, and we'll talk about them in a moment. Anyway, tonight is the last day of the novena. We, to give importance to this novena, have also set aside the other evening appointments, the catechesis, biblical, Johannine, etc., to make room for this catechesis, for this novena that we do every evening. This evening, by the way, the novena is led by the priests of the Marian priestly sodality. All 5 of them will participate, as well as myself, on this last day of the novena. So we'll see you at 9 p.m. There's the post. Share it, share it, share it. There's Father Minutella sitting in the Star Trek armchair. Even the expression, I must have been in a moment where I was thinking about something very important, thinking I was alone. Instead, they photographed me in that moment. Anyway, it's one of the most frequent expressions on my face, because I'm always there thinking so much. This evening we conclude this novena. It's a novena, as I said yesterday, with an unexpectedly international following from Slovenia, Hungary, Romania, Austria, with faithful people from the small remnant who have called from Canada, Argentina, and France, and so on and so forth. And so it's a novena that we want to present to the Lord through the Immaculate Heart of Mary. With Our Lady asking us for these novenas, asking us for this prayer, especially in this year, 2025, dedicated, as you know, to the Rosary and the family. But in my opinion, something in the world is moving in a way, in my view, unexpected. But we'll talk about it in a moment. I'd also like to remind you that today is the feast day of Blessed Laura Vicuña, beatified by John Paul II on the 3rd of September, 1988. She's one of the great little heroines of the faith that we talked about in Saturday evening's segment. And also, the Novena to St. John Bosco begins today, the 22nd of January. There we are. We're all devotees, I believe, of Don Bosco. So, personally, it can't be done on Radio Domina. And personally, we're experiencing this novena in honor of this great modern-day saint, who was also prophetic. He had important visions and made himself available to testify. Here, this is the relic that I brought with me, and that will be present in Turin. When it's a piece of Don Bosco's cassock given to me by a Salesian priest, and which will be with us in Turin. On Friday, the 31st of January, we will celebrate Holy Mass. Obviously, especially for the Turin people of the Little Remnant, who I hope will come there, because Don Bosco, like all the saints, is hostage at the moment to the false church. And so today, the Novena to St. John Bosco. Then you know about the two events that we publicize every day. On Sunday, the 2nd of February in Milan, presso the NH Congress Center in Assago at 3 p.m., coaches are being organized from various places, in particular from Veneto, from Friuli Venezia Giulia and Trentino Alto Adige. This is lovely because it's always a surprising response, especially because evidently the people from the smaller villages gladly come to participate in these moments, which turn out to be beautiful, intense, with the air and scent of Pentecost, so they gladly come. And speaking of the coach from Emilia-Romagna, it's still quite empty. So I invite you to sign up by calling the Emilia-Romagna representatives. The bus will leave from Cesena Nord, and it's quite comfortable. So I suggest, why not come by bus? I find it a convenient way to come. So people from Emilia-Romagna, if you want, get busy, book in advance, because time is starting to run out. And then Tuesday, the 11th of February, Feast of Our Lady of Lourdes, will be in Verona at 6 p.m. for the welcoming of Our Lady. A short candlelight procession, and then the solemn high mass, followed by the anointing of the sick. Original sin has assigned us, we are all, if not sick, predisposed to illness. Of course, it's not the sacrament of extreme unction. It's just the Good Samaritan's oil. And then I remind you that tomorrow I'm in Austria. Tomorrow I'll be in Linz for two interesting appointments. The first is a meeting with young people, with the youths of an academy. The dialogue, the discussion, this symposium with the young people will be broadcast live, but without images, out of respect for the young people's privacy. And then in the afternoon at 6 p.m., I think if I remember correctly, the Holy Mass will be broadcast live. Finally, on Sunday the 26th, we are, as you already know, in Friuli Venezia Giulia, Palma Nova. Come on, organize yourselves in good time, even the faithful of the small remaining Friulian community. I'd like to remind you that we priests, barely 6 of us, in the sodality, while others scratch their belly buttons and don't know what to do all day, so they dabble in antiques or go and sit on psychiatrists' couches. Because they have empty churches, people don't go to church, except for funerals and weddings. And so they don't know how to spend their time. They get depressed. Whereas us 6 priests, even if we wanted to get depressed, we wouldn't have the time to do it. Because there's no time for depression. There's no time to feel bad either. I'd like to tell you, you all know each other. And I don't say this for autobiographical reasons, but rather I'd say, for doxological ones, to give glory to God. I have seen what I had perhaps never seen in my life. In the area between Hungary and Romania, I saw something that for Brother Celestino, who was born in the foothills of the Dolomites, was, well, it was a sight that apparently, even he, who's usually so calm, wouldn't have been able to remain composed about. And to say thank God, even when the Third World War breaks out. It's not even that credible, is it? That's why he's reached a level of Ignatian indifference, him being a Franciscan. But I tell you, I've found some incredible scenes, my dear children. That is, the hoarfrost, that's what it's called. Practically the woods, the forests along the motorways. Excellent motorways. the ones between Hungary and Romania, probably better than the Italian ones, at least those in the center-south, certainly. Here are some pictures. This isn't snow. Friar Celestino was explaining to me. It's called hoarfrost, basically frost, which comes to whiten, to crystallize the trees. Never seen before. But look, I'm telling you this to say, what are we doing? Priests of the sodalicium. Right, so where do I want to get to? Because then I have to talk about today's theme, which absolutely, make yourselves comfortable. Make yourselves comfortable, because today's theme is extremely interesting on the last day of the novena. As I was saying, we priests of the sodality are always on the go. That blessed Don Roma, may God grant him health and long life. He's always running around from one place to another. Perhaps more than any of us, or at least we're about even, you know? To say Mass on Sunday. So I'd like to say to you, dear faithful of the small remnant, don't think you're going to enjoy the show. You know, I don't play favorites. If we were a sect, as they say, I wouldn't talk to my sectarians like this. Not at all. But I love the church, and I love souls, and I benefit from what they say about me. So you're enough when it's necessary. I don't want anyone from the small remnant to get complacent. It's not the time to rest. It's not the time to sit down. It's not the time to fall asleep. St. Paul says it, Peter, be sober and vigilant. But even St. Paul has these constant appeals. Don't sleep. So if there's Mass in Friuli Venezia Giulia on Sunday the 26th of January, I'd like to know who won't be coming then. And it's not like we're here to play the lottery. It's in your interest, otherwise why would we bother coming? From Friuli Venezia Giulia, Sunday the 26th. I can understand on weekdays, but on Sundays you mustn't skip Mass. And I'd say that on some occasions, like the 31st of January in Turin, Feast of Don Bosco in Turin, or the 26th, the 11th of February in Verona, Feast of Our Lady of Lourdes, even if they are a Friday and a Tuesday. But, for goodness sake, get organized in good time, because it's a route as if it were a parish. Got it. With all the trouble, by the way, that this entails for us priests, but for everyone. Because why should we pay for hotels and all that stuff? So please don't miss these appointments, because they are absolutely invaluable. Well, I couldn't wait to start today's episode, which is crackling. The title should say it all, really. The directors put it in the description. Here's the title, A New World Order, if you please. My collaborators suggested using capitals, both for New World Axis, capital initials, and for New World Order, because they're important acronyms, not just verbal expressions. New World Axis, or New World Order. Question mark. And then, right after, is it Rome? Question mark. I think it's the analyst's title, since we have some left. Even one, we have some in the small remainder. People who know how to analyze things well, and who come in to tell the truth on a collision course with others of the small remainder. Because if I talk about Putin's Russia today, foreseeing that it may have a role, as I will now say, a precious, advanced, avant-garde role, to which, from the other side of the ocean, would be responding. The Trump administration comes from a list of the small remainder, Putin is the devil. Or if on the other hand I say Trump, now, as I will say now, is carrying forward family policy, the one that the Catholic magisterium has always proclaimed. Because now with Bergoglio this no longer happens. And so Trump is, what do I know? Me. Even he is the devil. So I would like to say to all of you, my dear children, be good, all right? Let me analyze things. Everyone should stick to their own position. I'd like to make it clear straight away, I don't intend to canonize either Trump or Putin, because I don't know them. I analyze things, as you'll see now, and I explore them in depth with you. Right, let's begin. We've known for years now that there's a project for a so-called New World Order. That is, the New World Order. This New World Order, it's never been exactly clear how it's supposed to come about. But we do know something, because clearly it's a project that's been carefully planned in the centers of power, in the corridors of power. But what we can deduce is the following. First, it's a project to place in the chancelleries, in the most prestigious offices on the planet, globally, a class of leaders who answer to an unidentified, unspecified elite who would be aiming for what is called Agenda 2030. I also talked about it for what I was saying, that there was the crackling episode, the Kalergi plan, things like that. This agenda would foresee the total disappearance of the natural family. Because, according to the Malthusian Kinnean perspective, Malthus and kin, human procreation, therefore the carnal union between man and woman, produces human life, and this is producing, according to these perspectives, a problem of overpopulation of the planet and scarcity of human resources. Eliminate the natural family, privileging the alternative family, which is ultimately the homosexual, LGBT, that sort of thing. So at the same time, promote the LGBT plus agenda and carry on with this, let's call it propaganda, in favor of the so-called diverse, of the... One of the fundamental characteristics of this New World Order and of those who manage it is to disguise themselves behind the slogan of attention to minorities. So migrants and gays. If I were gay, I wouldn't let myself be exploited. Fine, do as you wish. Migrants and gays, these two categories, fundamentally. But within this development, a little, however, the real ones are told. That's why I say today's episode, the real purposes, the real objectives are told. For example, regarding immigration, who manages it? Why? Benedict XVI, but even before him, John Paul II, had spoken of a right to housing in one's own land, not to emigrate. Who up until now has done this project? Because, as you can see, immigrationism, immigrationology as I call it, today is a science that foresees immigration as an absolute objective. And that's, let's say, the gist of it. It's illogical that it can exist, because if all the international chancelleries were really interested in investigating this matter, they should first resolve the issues for which, at an endogenous level, people leave their own lands. Instead, this isn't done. There isn't a single word from Bergoglio in favor, or maybe there are a few, because you always have to disguise yourself. To say that immigrants have the right not to leave, it almost seems that they should leave instead. Bergoglio said it until a few days ago on the broadcast. I wonder where the heck Italians fit in, when Bergoglio allows you to tell Italians that since you don't have children, let the immigrants in. But he can do that, because we Italians have been reduced to this. I'm going to tell the Americans, or the Russians, or the French. Can you tell the Italians? Since you don't have children, and sadly it's true, because I travel around the world and I see that in the nations, even here in Austria. Yesterday I went shopping. Among many things, I also shop for food. Let's try not to eat in restaurants when we can, for economic reasons. We have small stoves, rather. We thank the benefactors who help us, even with technical things. We have the little stoves. The nuns cook, so I go shopping, because I can choose for myself. I went into a shopping center here in Austria. It was very interesting. Very similar to the Italian ones, the Romanian ones not, Hungarian ones in between. Interesting. Austria is already full, European Union like Italy. You go into the shopping center, it's a bank. Then you go to Hungary. It's a post office. You go to Romania, you don't even find that. But it's a young nation, because everywhere you see children coming out. There are children everywhere. In Italy, however, there are no more children. So Bergoglio proposes to fill the places left vacant by the absent family policies. It's no coincidence, though, is it, Bergoglio? He pretends not to notice it. Put the immigrants there. The New World's Order. Finally, in my opinion, within the New World Order, there is the project of a satanic type of programming. Luciferian, that is, an anti-plan, a counter-narrative to God's design. For me, it's really proven. There's no doubt that most of these are Satanists, followers of the occult, of esotericism. No one can have any doubts about this, I hope. This is the New World Order. So conquer the world to plan this agenda, which I apologize to the more expert, but I apologize. But why? How am I presenting it? Am I presenting it well? No. I mean, I can't go into it in depth. There you go. This is the New World Order. But be careful, because starting from 2022, something unexpected began to happen. That is, while it seemed that all the exponents of a, let's say, politically, ideologically conservative position, anti-green, for example, anti-LGBT, where anti doesn't mean against, it means they don't adopt that agenda. They were defenestrated. I remind you of Bolsonaro in Brazil, to name one, and the attempts to place weapons around the borders with Russia. Because I remember, and these aren't just my words, you can look on social media. I hope they don't cancel me, though, seeing as they don't cancel the others who say these things. That Russia responded to provocations regarding Russian-speaking minorities who were constantly targeted. Right, that's another story. Things seem to progress. Even I, who thank God, as you can see, have a clear mind, must say that. I've personally struggled, my own personal struggle, regarding this whole affair. I've had it here because I've gradually realized that it was indeed going this way, especially from the moment it was played. The take-all ace is St. Peter's throne. The all-encompassing one was supposed to be the most important moral agency on the planet. No Dalai Lama, no red-skinned chief, no Jewish representative, rabbi of the planet, chief rabbi of all the synagogues of the planet, will ever succeed, not even the greatest Orthodox patriarch, in having the global prominence on the ethical and moral level that the Roman pontiff has, the Pope of Rome, the Bishop of Rome. So the project started from afar because it had to foresee the removal of a pope who stubbornly clung to conservative positions. I'm talking about Benedict XVI, for whom we have proof, I'm not making this up, that the American administration worked behind the scenes to remove Benedict XVI. Because since always I hope that Brother Celestino agrees on that. We know, but I say it because he's a church historian. I enjoy church history, so I expect he'll confirm what I'm saying. We know that in the conclaves of the past, the political weight of the House of Habsburg was imposing, as could have been that of the Bourbons in the past. But from Roncalli onwards, at least from Roncalli onwards, no one has been made pope without hearing the long echo of the White House to understand if the White House apparently had been amenable or not. There's no doubt that the White House, over the centuries, over the years, has held political significance for Rome as well. Anyway, it's a fact that Benedict XVI was forced to leave because they accepted it. The latest episode of SWIFT and the frozen bank accounts should give us pause for thought, once again. Nowadays, one mustn't speak out. Dominutella is a danger to himself. Who knows what will become of Dominutella, as he's the only one who sides with the brothers. The possibility has been raised that Benedict's resignation was invalid, meaning Bergoglio isn't the Pope. And about this, as you can see, even last week, in recent days, the newspapers have targeted the poor, the intellectually poor, the picturesque harlequin. Mr. Minutella says he upholds traditional values, but without stating the real reason why he goes forward. And that is that Bergoglio is not the Pope, because Pope Benedict did not resign the office. All this made us reflect, because over the years, starting from the early 2000s, and then with 2013, the 2016 decision, Bergoglio's dealings with the Sangalo Mafia and the American administrations, Clinton and then Obama's liberals, and gradually across the planet, especially in Europe, with the European Union increasingly environmentally friendly. Evergreen means always green, to mean always vital. But in this case, I mean with the environmentalist ideology. Do you remember Greta Thunberg's proclamations? And so on, Bergoglio, to the question, what is your concern? The Congo aquifers and the trees in the Amazon. And then immigration, the immigration issue that only concerns Italy. How much, serve Italy, how much I love you. Look, I'm so patriotic that I'm surprised we Italians aren't. There should always be the football World Cup, so that we can discover we're united. If we get this, they're gone. Italy has a mission to fulfill. It too, because it is favored by God. Isn't that almost enough to make you cry? Italy is a nation favored by God. Only Italy has Saint Rita and Padre Pio, Saint Francis and Saint Benedict. I mean, find me a nation that has saints of the stature I've mentioned. Founders of paths of faith, of holiness spread throughout the world. The Benedictine spirituality. Where is Catholicism in America or in Australia? There's the Benedict of us. Let's not talk about Francis of Assisi, where there is Roman Catholicism. It is above all in harsh and troubled mission lands, like the heart of Africa, Southeast Asia, understand? French and Spanish saints have their gate too. But shall we talk about Don Bosco? Of Don Bosco, Italy. You understand? Italy. Right, anyway, back to us. And so on and so forth. This agenda has been imposed, which seemed to be proceeding fairly undisturbed until recently. The unexpected is beginning to happen. I'll mention, at least briefly, two unforeseen situations that have jeopardized this project. Look, the battle is ideological. Because I'm not a fool, I pray to Our Lady to always keep, and you pray for that, the lucidity to delve deeper into things. Ideological and spiritual. But it goes through the economy. Remember these words of mine. The battle is ideological, apocalyptic, and spiritual, supernatural, but it goes through the economy. Because the moment, as I anticipate now, the Trump administration threatens tariffs on the European Union. Got it? Some major newspapers have already written about it. The European Union is heading towards suicide. Because if Trump stops the collaboration on the environment and the whole carbon dioxide emissions issue, Trump doesn't want to hear about these things. He doesn't want to invest in these aspects. And if von der Leyen says we must insist on this, rightly so, some economic analyst who doesn't have rosary beads in hand and doesn't pray novenas, writes, however, that Europe runs the risk of suicide. Because if you cut ties with Russia and you're at war with them, even if it's unofficial, and then on the other side, Trump even tells you that the collaboration is over, do you know what will happen to the European Union? The first episode that, in my opinion, created a blackout for the New World Order was the intervention. I was in Buenos Aires, I remember it very well, of the Patriarch of Moscow, Kirill, who, as the major newspapers have titled it, I quote, it's radio.dominanostra.it. Adesso, in a moment I'll show you the article. The Patriarch of Moscow, Kirill, the war in Ukraine is against those who support gays. A sensational twist. So this whole gay thing, the LGBT agenda, despite all the love that can be put into it, becomes decisive. But isn't it a flag being used to the detriment of even those beloved gay people? Anyway, Kirill, what did he say when the war was on? When did the war start? We're in early March of 2022. I remember very well that on that day, despite Culpes Mario, I was in Buenos Aires, in a hotel near Casa Rosada, and a pro-Ukrainian procession passed even in Buenos Aires for the declarations partly from Russia. What did it say on that occasion? There? The Patriarch of Moscow's moral authority is evidently unimpeachable. If humanity recognizes that sin is not a violation of God's law, if humanity agrees, this patriarch speaking on the idea that simply one of the options for human behavior, then human civilization will end there. These are strong words, and in the West, we with Rome having fallen so low, are experiencing there's the end of civilization. Anyone who goes to Rome realizes this. Rome is in a very bad way. And he adds that gay parades are designed to show that sin is one of the variations of human behavior. I wonder, where is there even one single city where the cardinal... Yesterday there was an intervention by Cardinal Sarah on the major problem of combating the Latin Mass. But why don't they just butt out? With Bergoglio, the false pope, Freemasonry in the Vatican, the apocalyptic projects that we are witnessing, Sarah is worried about the Latin Mass. It's an important matter. But it's like the ship is sinking, and the captain is worried that the divers don't speak English.
I mean, come on!
Let's just save ourselves, save the ship. No, nothing. At the new Bussola Quotidiana, they held out with a hedonist. Professor, why did he succeed? Director Cascioli, to have Sarah do a piece on the problem of the Latin Mass. Look, the world's burning up. Rome's church is dying out. He's not been pope for 12 years, yet they fret about Latin Mass. Instead, the Patriarch of Moscow is saying what the Pope should have said. When God can't find someone here, he looks elsewhere. The Lord doesn't give up and doesn't have to ask permission from Fra Celestino or Don Minutella. Note how the Patriarch of Moscow speaks. He speaks with that solemn authority on the moral plane, calling a spade, which the Bishop of Rome no longer had. And he adds, but do you mean that yes, though? Benedict XVI has moved, and this in my opinion, if I may say so, with clasped hands and a cappuccino, but this demonstrates the parrhesia with which one speaks. With too much caution. At the beginning, too much caution. I remember the change of pace. Before becoming Pope, do you remember? The church founded. Thankfully, he said there was too much filth. Then he started, perhaps a little worried about having to justify himself. The Pope asked for it young, the church here, the church there. Then he came back again. Here's what Kirill says. Here's why, to enter the club of those countries, he's talking about Western countries, or he's talking about the New World Order. It's necessary to organize a gay pride parade, and we know how people resist these demands. Because it's true, the people, then, aren't protagonists in this stuff. As this resistance is repressed by force, Shaw means imposing by force, a sin condemned by God's law. Mamma mia, how wonderful. Is this going against gay people? No. Against the Amati brothers, the gay brothers? No. It's a point for them. The barrel? No. Is it wanting to ghettoize them? No. It means saying that gay pride is a disgrace for the very same people. Gay with their backsides uncovered. their tits out, giant condoms in the air. What is this stuff? Does the gay world recognize itself in these parades? Where do these parades come from? Who wants them? And so this is what, in my opinion, was the first breakthrough of an axis that was in preparation. Because there's Putin in Russia. We are praying for Russia. We've spoken these last few days. Our Lady asked for Russia's consecration, but it wasn't done. With no pope who'll do it. What's God's plan? Are we ready to understand God's alternative action? Or do we, the small remnant, also fossilize? Meanwhile, Trump escapes an assassination attempt and becomes President of the United States of America. Yesterday, the other day, comes the keynote speech, where among other things he says, "But I have the text right here. I have the text right here. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your attention. I'd like to thank all of you. It's wonderful. These are our friends." I jump. I start talking about an America that must become great again. Make America great again. America must be great again, especially with a role internal. We're talking about a comeback, a return to the past. Why a return to the past? Because at one point Trump parla del programma and says he escaped the attack because he made himself available to a plan, to God's design. He interprets his victory, the fact that he escaped the attack, as God's plan. And then he defends the family according to traditional values. And he says that family is between a man and a woman. And then he adds that the policies will take family members into account and that he will interrupt all funding related to the LGBT world, the gay world, and the world of immigrants. In the Mass celebrated by a bishopess, Brother Celestino, enjoy the video. Enjoy it all. There's a bishopess, I don't know, of which? A Protestant Reformed confessional family who are appealing to President Trump with these words, "Let me make one final plea, Mr. President. Millions have placed their trust in you. And as you said to the nation yesterday, you have felt the providential hand of a loving God. In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy on the people in our country who are forgotten now."
In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are
gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives, and the people who pick our crops and clean our streets, who work in pharmacies and meat plants, who wash your plates after we eat in restaurants, and work nights in hotels, can't be citizens.
They may not be citizens.
Or have the correct documentation. But most immigrants aren't criminals. They pay their dues and are good friends. Sono members fiduciosi della nostra churches, mosques, synagogues, gurdwaras, and temples. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear their fathers will be taken, and that you help those who are suffering from war zones and persecution in their own land to find compass and blessing. Here our God teaches us that we are merciful to the stranger. Therefore we all want strangers.
For we will all want strangers.
In this land, God gives us the strength and courage to honor the dignity of every human being, to speak the truth to one another in love, and to walk with our friends and with our God, for the good of all people, the good of all people in this nation and in the world. Amen.
In this nation and the world. Amen.
It seems to me to be a rather embarrassing service. I don't know if you saw the reaction. On Vance's face, the vice president, who's 40, ultra-conservative, Catholic, you could say it's Bergoglio's program that did that. He sounded like Pope Francis talking with that bishop-like tone. Or am I wrong? My children, am I wrong? I'm mistaken. Tell me if I'm wrong. It seems they were talking about Lorifitz or Ripoll or I don't know who. Others. Among the Italian bishops who compete to appear as unevangelical and uncatholic and unchristian as possible. But Bergoglio. That sounded like a reply from Bergoglio. You saw the emphasis on the theme of mercy, but here I say this as a theologian. A very simple question arises. We have the voice coming from the polar bear saying that this is a sin, that these things do not correspond to God's law. We have the bishop who, in Washington, says that God wants this welcome, this openness, and this respect. Note, immediately, the trap, to carry forward a vision of a moral kind, relating to God's commandments, which condemn sin. It's portrayed as persecution against minorities. I don't know if I'm making myself clear. I don't know if I managed to explain. And that's the trap. And now the Carnic man becomes the victim. The international left, which until yesterday was triumphantly there carrying the project forward, sees its path blocked by Trump. So what does it do? It adopts the language of those who are worried. Because now Trump will persecute gay people house to house. But Trump didn't say that. Trump didn't say that. He said he won't fund it. That he's not continuing the funding towards the LGBT world. It's the same as saying you have it in for gays. But the bishopess implies this. In the name of God's mercy, you understand? Pope Francis Docet. Right, I'm coming to the conclusion. Because the title now should be clearer. New World Order? Putin, Trump? Despite everything. Because it's not like we're saying like some fundamentalist from the tiny remainder attacks me. I'm not canonizing. I don't know who the heck Trump is. I don't know him. But God can use Cyrus, king of Persia. When God sent Jeremiah to tell the Jews, I will destroy the temple because you are idolaters, he used Nebuchadnezzar. God can make use of whomever he wishes. We're not canonizing anyone. Open your eyes, have the wisdom to understand things. There's a Trump in Washington and a Putin in the woods. Now is the New World Order over. Or a camouflage, as some say, that is an absolute unexpected global maneuver to make people believe that the project isn't going ahead. And yet, in the end, it goes ahead. One thing is certain, it's Rome, because they conquered Rome, and they put one of the best there. Trump and Putin together don't make Bergoglio. There's no one like him. There's no one on his level in terms of character, temperament, strength, determination, will to go on, right up to self-sacrifice, like Jorge Mario Bergoglio. It's a shame he's doing it on the wrong side. There isn't a pope of modern times as resilient as Bergoglio. He's swollen beyond belief. I don't know why he's so swollen, but someone explained to me medically what it could be, but I'd rather not say. Rome? Noticed how Vigano's vanished lately? Archbishop Vigano? Archbishop Vigano, like Cardinal Burke, like other members of the anti-Bergoglio world, might now find the door open in Washington. Burke, for example, could become because Vance, the vice president, is an ultra-traditionalist Catholic. So undoubtedly, he looks favorably on Burke and probably Vigano too. The problem is that Vigano has made his own church because he's had himself reconsecrated. He doesn't recognize. Look at the dramatic situation for us now. Let's leave. We're leaving the global dimension. Let's get back to our problems at home. Issue, what's the problem? The problem is that if the White House is preparing some sort of attention, as has happened in the past, for the next competitor, we must be careful. Let me explain. There's no doubt that, in my opinion, a diplomatic network is being created, let's say, of informal contacts between the White House, led by a conservative like Trump, who isn't Catholic, but by a 40-year-old vice president. A Catholic, a traditionalist, and also one with, let's say, balls. Because he was in the Iraq War, he went to fight in Iraq. Vance. You also have to know the vice president, who is Catholic, tied to tradition, a friend apparently, for example, of Mel Gibson, who is a friend of Vigano. You see, the circle is tightening. The problem, what is it? Let's say that the two most significant representatives of this anti-Bergoglian direction are, certainly Trump isn't coming to look for me. Vance doesn't know I exist, that we exist, unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately. Now let's see. But certainly, Trump and Vance possono guardare a Vigano Burke. But what's the problem? That Monsignor Vigano had himself reconsecrated because he considers the post-conciliar popes heretical. And we don't accept this. And what does he do? Burke recognizes Bergoglio as pope. We're in a global situation. So when you're expecting the 3 days of darkness, I tell you this is the worst of the 3 days. I can't tell you the confusion, let me use the term. It's chaos. I wanted to use the other word. It's chaos. Total. Perhaps God is acting in a way, at this point, completely unexpected. Try talking about the great prelate around here and the devil will make you pay for it. It's the forbidden topic. The word great prelate unleashes the ire, the fury, the rage, the irony, and the scorn of all. And what God is planning, we can't know. But today I wanted to do an analysis. I hope it was clear and that it makes you think. I think the real revolution is prayer. Let us pray a lot. Let us pray often. Let us ask Our Lady to help us always better understand what God's will is and to fulfill it to the very end. Right? I remind you, this evening at 9 o'clock, and in line with what we are saying today, there will be the rosary for the last day of the novena. I'll be waiting for you. Don't miss it. It's an important moment. And then there will also be the rosary with the priests of the sodality. Tomorrow we'll also be at Linz for a meeting with the young people. And then again at 6 p.m., Holy Mass.